Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Samantha Ettus. As a dedicated champion of women, Sam has devoted her career to advocating and supporting women in the pursuit of their dreams. Thousands of women, from C-level leaders to administrative assistants to moms returning to the workforce, have benefited from Sam's unique guidance. She finds that spark within each of them and turns it into a fire. In Sam's quest to help women achieve financial independence, she launched Perk Place Payments. Since earning her undergraduate and MBA degrees from Harvard, Sam has become a best-selling author of 5 books, a renowned speaker and host of a nationally syndicated call-in radio show. Sam's most recent book is The Pie Life, a guilt-free recipe for success and satisfaction. She writes a popular weekly work-life newsletter and penned a Washington Post op-ed that landed in the top 10 op-eds in 2017. Sam makes regular national television appearances on shows including NBC News, The Doctors, Access Hollywood, Good Morning America, and The Today Show, among others. She has been featured and quoted in The Wall Street Journal, The New York Times, USA Today, Inc., Fast Company, and Success Magazine. She was the host of a leading internet talk show, Obsessed TV, which she created and produced with entrepreneur Gary Vaynerchuk. Sam is active in causes relating to women and girls and is the co-founder of the Los Angeles Women's Collective, aimed at supporting women to run for office nationally and win. She serves on the advisory board of the Forbes School of Business and Technology. Sam lives in Los Angeles with her husband and 3 children. This show was beyond belief today, you guys. Sam knocked it out of the park. And when she says she's a champion of women, she did not fall short in my expectations. Today, she talked about why it is important for women to be financially independent, why we shouldn't feel guilty for having dreams of our own, how our dreams don't die just because we give childbirth and become a wife, how to create greater confidence, why investing in yourself is key, and so much more, you guys. This episode is power-packed and will empower girls and women out there everywhere. Make sure to subscribe and share this with your friends and your loved ones. Without further ado, I want to dive into this episode. I'm more than excited to welcome Sam Ettus to the show today.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
I was looking at all of your accolades, and my favorite one that leapt out of me was that, though you have many formidable ones, is that you're a champion of women. That's what this podcast is all about, is empowering women to be the best me that they can be and realize that they're worthy of and deserving of having it all. And so I really want to introduce you to people and have you talk a little bit about your backstory that brought you to this place to be a champion of women.
Yeah, I grew up with a mom who was a very strong woman, and she was definitely a feminist, and from a very young age was a role model to me in terms of her own strength, her own, way of using her voice, and also her focus on financial independence. So when I was very young, she pointed out a woman who lived in her apartment building in New York City and said to me, she hates her husband, but she has no money of her own, so she can never leave him. And I was very young at the time, and it's kind of a crass way to deliver the message, but the message was the correct one to deliver. I mean, would I say it in the same way to my kids? Probably not. But it really kind of got into me that I will always be financially independent. I will never choose a relationship because of money. And that's my wish for my own daughters, that they, are comfortable always earning their own money, that they always have a way to earn their own money, and that they can achieve their dreams on their own, and that a relationship is the gravy on that life. And it's not the end goal. It's something that enhances your life, and that you'll always choose a relationship for the right reasons.
And I love that so much. And I could relate to what your mom was teaching, because I learned that lesson the harder way. And I still remember when I was in a domestic violence situation. I'm a survivor of that.
Okay.
And I still remember when I went to the church, the pastor, they didn't really know how to deal with that kind of situation. But
I still don't. Yeah.
Yeah. And this pastor said to me, and he was the best one that gave me advice to go get a job and make my decision from an independent standpoint, because I was making all of my decisions from a dependent standpoint. And he was right, because once I went and started working and realizing and recognizing things a little from a different standpoint, it sure did change everything. So therefore, I taught my daughter that she too needed to be able to stand on her own, so she would never put up with less than she deserved because of money. So I love that you said that. I love that we started with that. And I just really want to kind of talk about what you do in your organization that helps women.
So, for the early part of my career after business school, I was focused on personal branding for CEOs and different experts and authors and personalities. And along the way, I'd come up with this book series called The Expert's Guides that Random House published 4 books. And in each of the books, there was different experts who would share their areas of expertise. And over time, I decided, okay, I'm just going to do the books full time and focus on media. And I did, but I really missed working with personalities, especially with women. So I went back to work on personal branding with a lot of the women I admired, and recognized that you couldn't talk to women about their personal brands without talking about the elephant in the room, which was how they were managing their personal and professional lives together. And everyone seemed to have a personal obstacle that was holding them back professionally. And if you are miserable in your marriage, or you have a parenting problem, or you have a financial issue, it's impossible not to bring that to work. So I dug in and recognized that after I worked with all these experts, there was not one expert who was focused on work-life balance. And so I kind of became that expert. So I poured myself into the research. And after working with thousands of women, I came up with a very positive framework for how to manage your personal and professional life, with the goal of no woman ever having to choose one or the other. There was a very positive way to have both. And financially, it's the most responsible thing you can do, is make sure that you are always earning money or have a way to earn money when you need to. So all of the kind of the structure of my philosophy about work and life went into my last book, which was called The Pie Life, A Guilt-Free Recipe for Success and Satisfaction. And that book came out a few years ago. And I went on a book tour for that book. I do a lot of speaking, and I was talking at tons of women's conferences and Google and Twitter and General Mills and Target and everywhere you could think of. But the one group of women I was unable to help were the women who left the workforce and wanted to return. And no one was hiring these women. And so a lot of them, in desperation, had ended up joining multi-level marketing companies, and they started selling makeup and skincare to their friends. And they weren't even making martini money, let alone, money to support themselves. And I thought, okay, what's going on here? And when I looked at it, I was startled by the numbers, which 98% of people who join multi-level marketing companies don't even break even. They lose money.
Yeah, they spend all of them on the multi-level product.
Yeah, and it broke my heart. And I thought, okay, what is wrong here? And then about 10 years ago, I'd been at a conference where it was a credit card processing conference. And credit card processing, most people don't understand, except a small business owner like you understands. But basically, any business that accepts credit cards, whether it's a hair salon or a yoga studio or a gym or whatever it is, has to have an intermediary between American Express, MasterCard, and Visa and the actual business. And today, the intermediary is 30,000 men, and almost all white men. And I thought, where are the women? And when at this conference, I said, where are the women? And someone said, oh, there are no women in this industry. And so something clicked when I was on this book tour, and I thought, what if I could train these women, instead of selling makeup and skincare to their friends and ruining their friendships along the way, what if they sold credit card processing to their local businesses, the businesses where they already have relationships? They're a patient of the dermatologist. They go to that hair salon, that toy store, that bookstore. So they're only selling to their warm leads, and it's all recurring revenue. So I spent 2018 testing the model in 6 different cities. I went to multiple cities and trained people with no background in credit card processing to see if they could indeed be successful at selling it to their local businesses. So I trained rooms full of teachers and nurses and even a former doctor and an Olympic gold medalist and people with no background in sales to see if they could be successful at it. And based on their success, we raised our first round of funding, an angel round last June. We raised $1 million, and then we officially launched on Fox Business, and we were able to hire a really terrific full-time team. And now we've grown enormously. I'm in the middle of raising our seed round, and we have 250 account executives working with us now. And we'll probably be at 1,000 by the end of this year.
Wow, that is amazing. Amazing. When you started this, did you realize what you really had a hold of, and did you see the big vision?
I did, because I've always felt like we are building a $1 billion company, and we're going to do it by making a ton of women financially independent. We're going to be helping small businesses along the way, because this is an industry that is plagued with dishonesty and way overpriced services and technology and very poor service. And as a small business owner myself, I understand what it's like to not be able to get someone on the phone when something goes wrong, to not have good service. That time costs you so much money. And you just want honesty. You don't want to be up in the middle of the night thinking that you were, not given an honest rate or paying more than that your next door neighbor is for something. And so I thought, if we could deliver that in an honest, transparent way, but also deliver incredible service and do it with a local member of the community. So when you're selling something, the hardest thing is whether to trust the person or not. And we already come from a position of trust, because all of our account executives know the people they're selling to. They're already their patient, their friend, their neighbor, and their customers. And so because of that, we come from a place of trust, and that makes it so much easier to sell. And also it's just sort of a really good relationship, because there's no mistrust or concern embedded in it.
I love that. I love the whole idea behind your business and how you've pulled it all together. What would you like all women out there to know?
Well, your power is within you. And so your story is rewritten every day, and every day is a new opportunity to rewrite your story. So you get to decide what that story is going to look like. And I always like to say, don't live life in the past lane. Every single person around you has challenges and has overcome those challenges. And they might be in the middle of overcoming them right now. But as women, what we tend to do is we look at the person in line at Starbucks or our neighbor or our college friend, and we say, oh, they have the perfect life. They have no problems. And I'm here to say, after working with thousands of women, that nobody does not experience challenges. And so you're much better off worrying about your own grass being greener than focusing on worrying about someone else's grass. So, you have an opportunity to give yourself the best life possible given what you have. And your energy is much better spent focusing on improving yourself than comparing yourself.
And do you see a lot of women stuck in comparison?
I do. I see it every day. You know, we tend to beat ourselves up as women, and we'll say, "Oh, that person has the perfectly behaved kids and the great marriage and the perfect body," or whatever it is that we compare. And what you don't realize is that if you had that body, you might be battling melanoma. If you had that marriage, there might be infidelity. We don't know what goes on in other people's lives. And so rather than assuming that someone else's highlight reel on social media is their life, assume that their life is much more like yours, because it probably is. And every single person has problems. Money does not solve all of our problems. You know, looks don't solve all of our problems. A relationship doesn't solve your problems. It's within you. And so I've always tried to get women to rely on themselves in terms of their own confidence and not generating their confidence from external factors. And also there's a confidence that comes with reaching your goals and channeling your ambition in a positive direction. And when we end up, you know, in marriages, or we end up you know, having children, our ambition doesn't die with those milestones. And I think that so often as women, we end up thinking that those are the goals rather than those being things that enhance your life. And you can still have your goals and still pursue them while maintaining really healthy relationships.
Oh my goodness, what you said was so power packed and it rings so many bells. I don't know which one I want to dive into first, but why shouldn't the dream die within us once we have children and we get married?
Well, just in terms of being a role model, if you look at the statistics, daughters of working moms earn 23% more as adults than daughters of stay at home moms. And when you're sitting there thinking about your child's education, you're thinking about the organic food you want to put into their body, you should also thinking about the home movie that they're seeing. And so if they're watching you do all the house care and all the child care, most likely you are educating your child to grow up to be someone who's also doing all the child care and the housework, and not growing up into an equal relationship. And so it's really important to see and think about what you're modeling in your homes. Are you modeling an equal relationship? Are you modeling a relationship that is worthy of you, that you would want your own child to emulate? Because most likely, most kids follow the patterns that they see. People would often say to me, "Oh, you're so lucky. Your husband helps so much." And I would think, it's not luck. I chose him. I wouldn't have chosen someone who wouldn't help me at home or who wouldn't be an equal partner, because that was always my expectation, because I grew up in a home where my dad is the one who sewed the buttons. And, you know, when I used to go home and stay in New York City with him and have a speaking engagement, he'd be the one at the last second who was ironing my dress for me if it was wrinkled in my suitcase. So I always assumed that I would have a partner who split the domestic duties with me. And I think that's a really healthy thing for kids to grow up seeing. And, you know, you can't have equality unless you have equality at home. And I'm a big believer in that.
And I really love everything you said, because I really do think what you teach your children, it shows up by how you're living your actual life. It's not actually the words we're saying, it's the deeds we're doing and the way that we're living. And how important do you think it is for your children to know that you too have needs?
Well, you know, I've always said a lot of working moms suffer from guilt, and at different periods in my life, I have as well. I used to leave these like very long color coded manifestos if I was going to go on a business trip for my husband of, this is what so and so needs to wear, and this is what you need to put in the lunchbox. And one day he said to me, "You know, you make me feel like a buffoon. Like, this is not brain surgery. I can figure this out myself. I'm just going to follow you around the house when you make a lunchbox one day." And I came back from that trip. We don't do manifestos anymore. But after I came back from that trip, he'd done like, you know, 4 days of lunch boxes. And the kids were like, "Oh, Daddy did such a good job." I'm like, "You know what? You did such a good job. You should stick with that." So lunch boxes you can do forever from now on. And he became the lunchbox guy after that trip. But I think that a lot of our expectations and our and what we set out to do has to be embedded in how we're living our life, and how we're reaching our goals, and in how we're treating our kids and ourselves. And I think that, you know, my kids always see that I'm proud of my work. And there's two ways you can leave the house in the morning with young kids. You can leave the house and say, I'm so sorry, I have to go to work. I wish I didn't have to go. And mommy wishes she could be with you all day. And I'm so sorry. And then your child bursts into tears because you seem really sad about going to work too. Or you could say, I am going to have such an exciting day. Guess who I'm going to be speaking to today? And guess who I'm going to be meeting? And guess what I'm going to be doing? And you're going to have a really great day too. And tonight when we get home, let's compare our days. I can't wait to hear about your day. And I can't wait to tell you about mine. And that child is not going to be crying when you leave the house. They're going to feel good about their day, and they're going to know that you feel good about your day too. So children embrace our emotions. And if we feel guilty, they're going to make us feel guilty because that's what you're showing them. That is what they're supposed to do. And so a lot of it is modeling confidence and sharing your work with your kids. I remember years ago, I was leaving for a business trip early the next morning, and I left my daughter's room. And I said, by the way, I just want to let you know, let's say bye now because I'm going to be gone when you wake up in the morning. And we, said goodnight, kissed her goodnight. And I walked out of her room. And as I'm leaving, she goes, Mommy. And I thought, oh no, here the guilt trip comes. And she goes, do you think jobs will be different when I grow up? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, do you think jobs will be the same? They'll be the same jobs when I grow up as there are now. And I said, some will be different. Some will be the same. And she said, oh, good. Because when I grow up, I want to do exactly what you do. And I thought, okay, like that was a moment where here I was so expecting the guilt, and instead it made me feel so good that she was watching my every move and saw it as something to aspire to rather than as something to be ashamed of.
And I love that so much because I think in society a lot of the times, and it has a lot to do with just the way things were in the past. Women were made to feel guilty for choosing a career. And I just love how you put that. And I really do think it's our attitude behind it. Equally, being present when you are home is important. I've known people that stay at home that truly were not present for their children. So I think if you're present when you're home, that's the key.
100%. If you are going to be with your kids only 2 hours a day, but you have the technology off and you're focused on them and you're listening to them, that's far more valuable than being distracted for 10 hours. So it's, there is something to be said for the fact that we all have needs, and our needs involve friends and our communities and our careers and our goals and our relationships and our kids. And it's really important to recognize that you are a better parent when you have friends. You're a better parent in a healthy relationship. You're a better parent if you're doing something fulfilling all day long. And so it's all about how happy and fulfilled you are. And at the end of the day, if your kids see that they have a happy parent, they're most likely going to have a happy life. But a lot of times we don't realize that we look like we're just surviving the day and life is so hard. And that's not what you want your kids to think adulthood is, right? So if you think of it from their perspective, if they see you enjoying your friends and enjoying your relationship and enjoying your life, they're far more likely to live a life they love in the future.
I love that. That's so good. So many nuggets there. And I know a lot of the times we hear that we can't have it all, but your book says we can have it all. Why can we have it all?
I think you just need to redefine what all means. When for the Pie Life, I interviewed 100 different women who were at the tops of their careers, from the head of a university to the head of a fashion line to, the top woman on Wall Street. And they had a couple of things in common. One is that they spent almost no time feeling guilty. It was an extraneous ingredient in their pie. They spent no time on it. The second was that they all lived really full lives. So even though they might be the CEO, they weren't just a CEO and a mom. They were also a friend, and they were also a sister, and they were also involved in coaching Little League or whatever it was. They were taking things on which led to a full life. A lot of times because of a perfectionist bent, whether it's in us or it's been taught to us, we think, okay, if I just am a mom this year and just focus on my marriage and my momming, I will be the perfect wife and the perfect mom. Or if I just focus on working out and working, I'll have the perfect body and I'll do great in my career. That's not natural. And that's not when we're happiest. We're happiest when we're involved in a lot of different things. And I think it's recognizing that you're going to drop balls. And that's okay, because everyone's life is supposed to be messy. When you look, the reason I've always loved the pie analogy, when you look at a pie and it's store-bought and perfect looking, is that going to taste as good as the dripping, over the side gooey pie? No, you're going to choose the gooey pie every time. And that's how your life is supposed to look. You want a fun, exciting life, and saying no to everything is not going to lead to that exciting life. Saying yes to the margarita with a friend, and yes to going to your daughter's play, and yes to the promotion, that's going to lead to a fulfilling life.
And it's going to be a little bit messy. It's not going to be perfect if you're I like to go for everything, and because at the end of the day, I don't want to live with the regret of what I didn't do. And I think as long as you're present with whatever it is you're doing, because the guilt is just like fear. It takes too much of your energy and focus away from the thing that you're actually doing.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, if you are, I remember working with this one woman, and she was a big person in finance, and she quit her job because she said she didn't want to miss a moment of her younger child's life. And she felt she missed so much of her son's milestones. So one day she was at a soccer game with her older son. She quit her job, and she missed her younger daughter's first steps because she was at the soccer game, not because she was at work, but because she was at the soccer game. And at that moment, she said, I thought I'd be this mom who never misses a moment. And there's no way to not miss a moment. You're going to miss it for some reason or other. And so it's best to just live that full life and accept the fact that it's going to be messy. I mean, all of us have made mistakes as moms. And the bottom line is that a stay-at-home mom makes just as many mistakes as a working mom. You end up forgetting the uniform, where you end up forgetting to pack something. Or I remember I always say, like, save the guilt for these moments. So I was once on an airplane. I woke up and I was supposed to go to Minneapolis that day for my book tour. And I woke up that morning and one of my kids had 102 fever, my daughter Ruby. And I was so sad to leave her and I felt so badly, but I got her settled at home and I got ready for my 12 o'clock flight. And I thought, okay, as soon as I get on that flight, I'm just going to focus on work because that will be more beneficial to my family than if I sit here feeling guilty on the plane. So I'm on the plane and I remember I was in coach middle and my phone rings and I didn't know that phones could ring on airplanes. And I looked down and it's my child's school. So I picked up, and my other two kids were at school that day, and it was the teacher, and she said, you don't have lunch for Ella. And I thought, oh my gosh, it was the first of the month, and if I didn't have lunch for Ella, that meant that I also didn't have lunch for her kindergarten brother, Bowen. So here I was in the air. I had two starving kids, one sick child, and I was going to give a talk on work-life balance. Talk about imposter syndrome. I was like, okay, this is me. And the teacher said, don't worry, we can feed them Cheez-Its today. And I thought, oh my goodness. So now I say, okay, is this a Cheez-It moment? If it's a Cheez-It moment, you can feel guilty, but otherwise leave the guilt, behind.
Oh gosh, that reminds me of when I took my friend to the summit of greatness. She drove me because I had a complete avulsion of the hamstring from the groin. So I had just had surgery and I wasn't allowed to drive, and I really wasn't supposed to be sitting. So I had to sit sideways just to go. And she was volunteering. She's my driver, and her son had a swim meet that day. And she was always at his swim meets, never missed. And she was feeling guilty. But then I was like, hey, why don't you just leave him like a really like cheerleader kind of message or a little video? And she did. And he listened to that over and over and told her that was why he won his race. And
I love that story.
and you know what, she just found this way to he even liked that more, just to pivot and to still be his biggest cheerleader. And at the end of the day, I think that's what your family wants to know, is that you're cheering for them and that you love them. And if you can leave that impact, it doesn't mean you're holding their hand 24/7. And also, they're little entities. They can do things, and they can learn and grow and evolve and be strong. We don't want to also be these coddlers that everybody gets a trophy all the time.
That's so true. And, in interviewing lots of really successful people, most of them had parents who made them believe they could be anything. If you talk to the world's most successful people, almost all of them had parents who made them feel awesome inside. And it wasn't about the specifics of being at a certain thing or doing something. It was all about how they made them feel. They made them feel really loved. So you
Yeah.
hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
So huge, so huge. So you were talking earlier about how relationships affect everything. And I really agree with you, because I could teach you to eat all the greens out there, all the exercise, and all of the things. But if you really have a sad home life or a disconnected relationship, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect your health. And so, how does this come into play when you're leading women? How do you help them when you see them struggling in this way?
So a lot of it is something we talked about a little earlier, which is expectations. So it's having higher expectations of the relationships in your life and letting go sometimes of the relationships that are holding you back, whether it's friendships or romantic relationships. But if you're with someone who is putting down your goals or your dreams, that's the number one sign you shouldn't be with them, because you can't reach your potential as a human being, whether it's personal or professional, if you are living with someone who is not believing in you or not your biggest fan. And so all of us deserve to live with someone who is behind us and supporting us. And we shouldn't settle for anything less. In terms of friendships as well, I think that we all have friends who are happier being around us when things are going poorly for us. And those are not good friends. You want friends that are going to be by your side when things are going great, and they'll be by your side when things are not going well. Those are the best kind of friends to have. There's a reason that half of our friends change every 6 years. And that's because, we go through different phases of life. So you might have some mom friends, and then you have friends, nursery school mom friends. And then you have, friends, if you become single, you have friends from your single life. So as our life evolves, we move or whatever it is, but we usually hold on to half of our friends throughout our life. And you want to make sure you're holding on to the friends that are boosting you up and are making you feel good about yourself. And I remember this was a mom failure when my daughter was, I think, in first grade or second grade. She was friends with this girl that was never very nice to her. And I always tried to subtly steer her in the direction away from this girl, because the girl would always hurt her feelings. And I thought I was doing a great job of hiding my own biases. And one day she goes, "How come you don't like her?" And I said, "Oh, I do. You know what? I love any friend of yours who makes me feel awesome inside. Does she make you feel awesome inside?" And she goes, "No." And I said, "Well, that's probably why. I just love all your friends who make you feel great inside. I think that's the best way to choose a friend." So I think that applies whether we're 48 or whether we're, 11. It's the same lesson.
I love that so much. That is so great. And I'm just thinking about what you said about your friends. And Oprah always says, you want somebody that won't just ride in the limo with you, but if the limo breaks down, they'll take the bus. And I think like how you were talking, how to choose a partner and a mate, it's also who we surround ourselves with. And many times we're not certain at first. We're like, you're around somebody, they make you feel a certain way, and you're like, is it me, is it them? But if you're around somebody, I think take note of what you're feeling every time. Like you said, it's how a person makes you feel. If you feel less than and not enough and insulted, and they're draining your energy, that isn't a person that's going to take you to heights. It's not. I really think this is crucial, who we're surrounding ourselves with. How important do you find that with the things that you've done in your life. I see that you're a huge part of Forbes and you've done so many cool things.
Yeah, I try to choose my crowds wisely, right? So I think it's really important to think about, even when I advise young people about whether to take a job or not, or what kind of company they should work for. It's less important which industry it is, because a lot of people especially give young girls bad advice and they say, oh, go into a family friendly industry. Well, at the end of the day, you could be in the most family friendly industry in the world, but if you have a boss that doesn't respect their own personal life, they are not going to respect yours. And so it's choosing people who work for you, who work with you, who you work for, that are positive and that you can learn from. And I do think that finding people in your life that enrich you and teach you something and make you better in some way is very important. So, surrounding yourself by friends who only talk about, let's say, makeup and jewelry and clothing, that can only go so far, right? At a certain point, you want to talk about deeper things. So it's also about thinking like who's enriching your soul and who's enriching your life. That doesn't mean all friends need to be everyone or all relationships need to fulfill everything. I think that
Right.
we all have certain friends who are your fun friends or your friends you call when you want a shoulder to cry on. And it's important to recognize that everyone has certain strengths and certain weaknesses, just like we do.
And you're just making me laugh because I started thinking about this one particular time being, not that the group is wrong because they wanted to talk about pearls on their ceiling and the decor, because maybe that's what they're into, but it was just, I was in this certain group, they invited me and I went, and they're just talking about the clouds on the wall, the curtains with the pearls, and I was just like, oh, this is not for me. And I was bored. I was really literally bored out of my mind. And it was about the makeup and the jewelry and the this and the that. And so I can see what you're saying with the people you're hanging around with and the groups that you're in. It should be something that adds to your life and lights you up inside and makes you a better person at the end of the day.
Right. And I mean, that doesn't mean, of course, that you just spend all your time talking about politics or all your time talking about,
Correct.
current events or health or whatever it is. But at the same time, you want to make sure that there's something that is, enriching you in some way, whatever that might be. And part of that is also having a diversity in your friendships, right?
Yeah.
And spending time with a multitude of people, which kind of gets us back to what we were talking about earlier, which is like, I'm a big believer in saying yes more than you say no. I mean, I do that in my parenting and I do it in life. I always would rather say yes to an opportunity than say no. So I think that if you lead with yes, good things tend to happen, and getting yourself out of your comfort zone. Now there's, during COVID, there's not a lot of things we can say yes to, but when you're invited to things, whether it's a Zoom book party or whether it's, a conference you wouldn't normally attend, in some ways, Zoom has opened up the opportunity to say yes to events that you normally couldn't attend because you weren't there in person. But now you can say, sure, why not? And I'll try that, or I'll try that new
Right.
podcast, or I'll try that new way of doing something. So.
Right. You are opening yourself when you say yes. And when I know a lot of times we think, oh gosh, that course, it's $5,000 or whatever it is that you want to do out there. But it's more of an investment when you think of it from a place of what you're actually investing in, which is yourself. I think once you put that money out there in that course or whatever it is to better yourself, you automatically, just by doing that, gave yourself permission to reach higher, to go further, to learn more. And also, when you put that money out there, you're going to take it more seriously and you're going to start doing those things. You're going to start doing the thing. Like if you went to school, you're going to take it more seriously. All this investing in yourself pays dividends for everything you're going to do in life. And so, like you said, saying yes to the opportunity is what takes you further.
Yeah, I mean, we see that all the time just in our recruiting for Park Place. It's, we like to say you shouldn't have to spend money to earn money on it, like because MLMs force you to spend money to be part of their program, and we train everyone for free. But part of it is investing in the side hustle, investing in, and a lot of it is investing your time, right? It's saying, I'm going to add this, even though my dance card's full or my plate is full, it's still worthwhile because you never know what's going to happen from it. But to your point, yeah, I mean, attend that conference that's going to make you feel awesome, and take that course and do those things that are going to enrich your life, because investing in yourself is so much more valuable than always, saving, and always, what are you saving yourself for? What are you saving all of this for? I think saving your energy, saving your time, we talk so much about it. But in many ways, spending your time and spending money, if it's done smartly, can enrich your life. In fact, I think about this a lot with investing. Women are taught to save money. And if you look at every women's magazine, it's all about how to
Right.
save money, how to save money. And men are taught to invest. And it's why there's so many more male investors than women investors. It's like you actually are better off spending the money on investments than you are, putting your money under the mattress. But that's much more something that men are taught early on, to take a little bit of risk and there'll be a reward, and women are taught to constantly conserve.
Right. And I just think, like with workouts, I never have said, oh, I really regret doing that workout. I've never said that. And I
Right.
have never said, and probably will never say, we'll just knock on wood here, that investing in myself wasn't worth it. So
Right. Well,
I
certainly
just,
investing in that gym membership is worth it. That's for sure.
right. And so just investing in yourself, it's so many things, but it's showing a belief in your capabilities, and it will pay you back dividends. And I want to just ask, because you are involved with so many women, can you tell me a success story of somebody that you've kind of watched grow and evolve through your company? You don't have
Sure.
to name their name, but just
Yeah.
a story.
We have a woman whose husband left her, and they were doing very well appearance wise. Everyone thought that they were kind of, lived in a big house, had 3 kids, like we're just super happy. He left her very suddenly, and she was left with literally no money even to go out for lunch with a friend. I mean, she was left destitute because she hadn't controlled any of their finances, and she just trusted him blindly. And she started working with Park Place. And within a few months, she said not just the fact that she was earning money again boosted her confidence, but the fact that she had a job title. So when you start working with Park Place and you take our training course, which is an online training course called Park Place Academy, you become an account executive with Park Place. So suddenly she was an account executive with a financial services firm. So she felt great telling people what she was doing, and she felt great about the fact that she was earning her own money again. And those are the things that make me so passionate about what we're doing here. We ran into one of the husbands of one of our account executives, and he said, by the way, thank you so much. Park Place is great for our sex life because my wife has never been this confident before. And I thought, okay, everyone just feels better about themselves when they're earning money. And so it can
Yeah.
help you in a variety of ways.
I think, well, that is so true, because when you do feel better about yourself, you are happier. And I always tell women, if you take care of yourself, you can take care of everybody else in your life. And that also means your emotions and your feelings and the way you feel about yourself. So, and I love that you're building women's confidence. What would you say is a key factor to women having greater confidence?
Well, I do think it's financial independence. And I think that the number one thing is having goals and working towards achieving them. We all feel better when we're working towards something, whatever that goal is. And so I think it's very important to set goals for yourself that are realistic. So for example, if it's in the health arena, you don't want to go from not working out at all to saying I'm going to work out 6 days a week, because that's unrealistic. But if you say I'm going to work out 3 days a week, you can probably achieve that. So to me, making a realistic goal that you can achieve is the first step to building back your confidence.
I love that. And keeping the promise to yourself that you make, even like she said, make it more bite-sized instead of something you can't bite off and never chew. It's those small wins to create big wins. So if you say to yourself, I'm going to work out 3 days a week, do it for 20 minutes. Do something that you could actually achieve. Keep that promise to yourself, because it will build belief, which I believe is greater confidence.
Absolutely.
Wow, this has been so good today. It's so many nuggets, and I love everything that you've had to say. What do you think is your why behind it all?
I think I'm just passionate about equality, and I'm passionate about seeing women and girls have equal footing in our world. And I know that can't happen if we're not achieving financially as much as men are. And so I think that the key to that is raising girls who believe in themselves and who are committed to their ambition, and who know that ambition is a great thing and something to be proud of. And then it's also having adults who are out in the world making things happen and using their voices. So that's a why for me, a big why.
I love that. And it really is important to have a balance of power, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I think women need to have some of that power and take some of that power back in their lives. What would you say your vision is then for the future of your company? What is your vision?
Well, my vision and my goal are kind of one and the same, which is to inject thousands of newly financially independent people into this world who might not have had the opportunity before that to do anything that would come close to this scope of financial independence. And part of what I love about Park Place is that we're helping people earn recurring revenue. And so it becomes like life insurance to them. If you're getting a 4-figure check every month working for Park Place, if you take 2 months off, you're still getting that 4-figure check, because we're keeping your clients there, because my team does all the merchant support. So for us, that's a huge goal, is offering financial independence to people who might not have had access to that kind of opportunity before.
That's great. And I want all women to look you up. So where can they find you on social media, and what is your website?
So it's parkplacepayments.com. And I hope that some of your listeners will join us. And all they do is click on join our family, and then they can be part of Park Place. And then they can also find me on Twitter at Samantha Ettus, or on Instagram at Samantha Ettus. So.
I love it. Thank you so much. I just want to acknowledge you for following your heart and being a lighthouse for women out there so that they could be financially independent.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sisterhood of Sweat. Bye, everybody.